Welcome back, everyone. This is Austin Reville on our From the Vault series with 2FxC Tactical, featuring unique and historical firearms. They come through our shop and out of our personal collection right here in New Prague, Minnesota. Today we have a pretty awesome piece for you today. This rifle doesn't really need a major introduction, but I can't wait to dive into it because this is slightly different than the other ones you would see. With that being said, I want to thank you to all of our subscribers. Please like, comment, and subscribe. We try to get back to all the comments that we can, and we look forward to continuing to grow this channel, and we do appreciate everyone that has been a part of that. Now, with that being said, what we have before us is, you would recognize from any video game or World War II movie, a K98k. This one is slightly different than some other 98Ks, and what do I mean by that? Well, when we take a look at this particular one that came through our shop, when you look at the receiver, you're not going to see a DOT or a BYF or any other stamping other than the number 27. This one is stamped 1938. I hope you can see that. I'll try to get some pictures for this. It does still have on the left-hand side of the receiver Model 98, and if you can see there, the eagle stamps here look a little bit different. This actually has two sets of eagle stamps, one on the left hand side, one on the right hand side. This gun is a pre-World War II gun made by Germany in secret in violation of the Treaty of Versailles. These are known as the S-27s. So, Treaty of Versailles comes into effect after World War I. At the armistice of 1918, and part of the restrictions is not only decreasing the size of the German military and navy, it is also limiting guns and gun production, as well as all military armaments in general. By 1933, however, Nazi Germany comes into power with Adolf Hitler, and he has his sights set on Europe as a whole. Knowing that in order to take Europe, he needs guns and a military, he starts secretly building them up. And this comes through a variety of different areas. So one of the things he does in terms of small arms is he'll end up going to Steyr in Austria and buying these M95 carbines, which these were not carbines when he bought them. These are straight pull bolt action rifles. They would have been much longer originally, and then they would cut them down, which is why we get the M98, or excuse me, the M95 34 designation for this rifle. The 34 is 1934. That is the reference. That is when the Nazis went through and cut these down, rechambered them into Spitzer cartridges, just pointed rounds. That's what that means. Reserialized them and reworked them. So they would buy guns like this from other countries, but they still had their sights set on building their own guns. Now, we won't dive too deep into the history of the K98k because it's been done ad nauseum. In terms of, when I say too deeply, I'm talking about the production and design. These were designed in 1898 and produced all the way through 1945. And if we were to list the wars that these were used in, we would need one video just of the list. They are still being used in wars to this day. The United States obviously fought against these type of rifles in World War II, but we also did that in pretty much every conflict since then. That would include Korea. Yes, these did show up at times. This would include Vietnam. These did show up. This would include, even to the present day, in, say, Syria. These show up. Yes, we do have troops in Syria. So with that being said, these rifles have an enduring legacy, and one that isn't going to stop anytime in the near future. For something that has been designed in 1898, that's really quite impressive of its legacy. The Mauser company and Gewehr company that produced all these, or helped design, produce, I should say, really did set themselves up for great success and longevity. Despite the fact we are in a semi-auto world, this is obviously a bolt-action rifle. They still find use to this day. With that being said, these designed in 1898 originally, produced all the way through 1945. There was a ton of different variants. The K98K just stands for carbine. The K is the German word for carbine. That just means it's shortened. So I don't have a Gewehr 88 or original 98 in my collection at the moment, but this is an 1895 Chilean Mauser, and when you look at it, you can see how much longer this one is. A lot more representative of what the original Gewehr 88, which this is based off of and a derivative of, would look like in terms of its overall length. So getting back to this particular one, the S-27, Germany is looking to start small arms production, and they want modern weaponry. While the Steyr is great, it is a World War I straight pull rifle that is antiquated. Now, you say, well, hang on, that's antiquated. This was designed in 1898. Yes, but this featured a much smoother action. The stripper clip feeding was worked out and smoothed out, and still for World War II, this was a pretty advanced rifle. All in all, we should say. So we don't want to set this too far back in terms of where everybody else was. I mean, the Russians were still predominantly using the M9130 Mosin Nagants. Obviously, the Italians were using the Carcano rifles, which are all bolt action. Yes, we had our M1 Grands or Garands, but you got to remember 8-round magazines for those semi-automatic, or 8-round clips, I should say, for those semi-automatic guns. So this, with 5-round internal magazine, is not too far off from what everyone else is using. The Nazis were very efficient with these guns. When it comes to this particular one, in order to build it, they're playing a bit of a game with the world at this time. So this one was made in 1938. So Poland invasion happens in 1939. This has not happened yet. Once that happens, the gig is up, if you will, from the secret. There's no secret anymore. Even though really by 1938 there wasn't a massive secret. Obviously Neville Chamberlain had already gone and met with Hitler, and the Sudetenlands and the Czech Republic, or Czechia now I should say, has been taken, and the world knows that Germany is on the move, and they do have more of a military than they're supposed to, but no one's really willing to get involved. But there's still a game being played, at least politically, amongst the German hierarchy. So when they commissioned these guns, they had them update the Model 98 down to this K model, smooth everything out with all the modern features that you would see in a actual, say BYF or DOT produced K98k. I've got one right here somewhere, right here. Same gun. I don't know if we can show that. When you look at the bolt face, same gun. When you look at their overall profile, same gun. This one, the S27 here is missing its front sight hood, but other than that, this is the same gun. The biggest difference comes out in the markings. They didn't want to let everyone know where they were producing these things, so they came up with a secret coding system, the 27 being the factory code. When we look at the left-hand side, they had just eagle markings, not the typical Waffen marks that you would see, which is the eagle above the swastika. This one does have that on the other side of the receiver here on the right side. It has your typical Waffen marks and stamps. Why does this have both? Well, once Poland comes along and they decide to invade Poland, there really isn't much of a reason to keep this secret anymore. So they kind of went back and restamped everything to be like, yeah, that was ours, we designed it, and you can't do anything about it. It's really kind of a aftermarket alteration, if you will. But with that being said, these guns are the ones they would have used early on. These are the ones that, yes, in Poland and early in the Operation Barbarossa, as well as getting into Belgium and France, they would use these because they had more of these than they had of the DOT BYF K98Ks, the ones that were not in secret anymore. The only really major changes, the rear sight is slightly different, but not drastically so, and it's just terms in the blockiness of it. They kind of thinned it down a little bit for the later iterations. This particular one is a DOT 1944 one, which means it's getting kind of later in the war, so they had already kind of lowered the machining requirements as much as they can. It doesn't feature the high polish finish that these would in the early war, where they had more time. So you can still see the machine marks on the receiver versus, say, this one. Other than that, it's really just more about time and resources. You know, by 1944, the resources are running out. The invasion of France would obviously happen in June 6, 1944, with D-Day, and the end would come within a year after that. So at that point, they were just trying to get guns out the door as fast as they could. Where this one, they took more time to polish it, make it look more finished, or at least more overall finished as a product. Now, when it comes into the K98Ks, they're extremely accurate. 8mm Mauser, or 7.92 Mauser, is the actual millimeter designation. These are quite powerful guns. You got to think 8mm Mauser is a very large bullet, and they would shoot these every day. It does kick a decent amount. I've shot several of these. They're a lot of fun to shoot. Again, they are actually quite smooth rifles, despite the rifle cartridge size and the fact it's an all-wood, all-metal rifle. They're not overtly heavy. They're surprisingly light for their size. But this one, when it comes in, is just cool because it has both pre-war Treaty of Versailles violation markings on it and obviously the Waffen marks that come afterwards. It's not every day you see these. The S-27s are quite rare. You see the 98Ks that were made during the war, or the ones where no one's trying to hide anything. Everyone knows where they are. The cool thing about this is this kind of idea would perpetuate itself through the Cold War in various guns, where people would take, say, a CZ-27 or a VZ-27 and remove all the manufacturing marks off of them and use them in conflicts and clandestine activities throughout the Cold War versus, you know, west and east sides. This idea continues on to this day. So let's take a look at something in the modern times, where if you look at Osama bin Laden's AK that the seals pulled off of him, it has Chinese markings on it, despite the fact it's a Russian gun. Why? This was done to make it seem like the AK came from China and was supplied from China when it really was supplied for the Russians. Again, this is just the underworld of arms proliferation throughout the world that, again, we continue to do to this day, where we will hide the manufacturers, and I should say hide the manufacturers. We all know who makes this. This is a German gun, and this is true for most guns out there. We kind of know who makes them by when you look at them and you look at maybe some other stampings or just some machining or whatever. It's not really secret, but we make the attempt to sanitize them, if you will, and be like, oh no, we didn't do this. We didn't have anything to do with making these things, despite the fact you obviously did. When you look at this, even back in the 1930s, say 1938 when this was made, well, the Gewehr 88 had been out since 1988, or excuse me, 1888. This here is based on the Gewehr 88, this Chilean Mauser. I mean, other than the bolt being bent more down, you look at the overall receiver profile, it isn't drastically different. And that's because both are made in Germany and are of German design. And you can see the natural evolution of this design as it moves forward in time. So even in 1938, there really wouldn't have been a secret of who made this one. But this is what you do in order to give yourself, I guess, plausible deniability, which is why I find these guns very cool. The fact that we had the pleasure of having one come through our shop is really awesome. But I do hope you enjoyed this video. We have a whole bunch of German guns that we're going to be going over, and I can't wait to show you them all. It's not every day we get a collection like this, and we got to give a special shout out to the customer that brought them in. They're very, very cool. But until next time, thank you for tuning in. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Have a good one.